All right, so welcome to another rapid fire business story of the week. This is part of our rapid fire series, and today we have an incredible guest with us, someone who's achieved extraordinary success and is here to share their unique business journey with you. We're excited to hear their insights, so let's welcome them to the show. All right, so as this is our rapid fire series, we've got 1 minute or less to answer each question. So, in a minute or less, give us the elevator pitch to your story and your life. Go.
It's Dr. Scott Dell at your service. Been in business 30, 40 plus years. Been a full-time academic. I'm a recovering CPA, worked at the Big Four. Okay, the Big Eight is the reality, so I got enough gray hairs to go around. But I'm also staying on the bleeding edge of technology. I've become an AI geek and artificial intelligence. I keynote, I speak, I present. I help a lot of people use it and help figure this stuff out. I'm heavy in the career space. A couple of books recently. This past summer, ChatGPT and AI for Accountants, a Practitioner's Guide. Previous summer, Living Your Dream Career. We developed an online course, a workbook, as well as a textbook, and even wrote a book on LinkedIn. So I'm having fun. We're helping other people use technology, help other people learn. We had a franchise at one point. There was a computer training franchise, had a restaurant, had multiple businesses. I even used to sell cars and vacuum cleaners. So have some deep roots in business and excited by it and love to share.
So that's fascinating, and I would love to dig a little bit deeper. So tell us a bit more about what you're working on today that you're most passionate about and believe will have the biggest impact.
I'm not alone when I think and say it's AI. I think it's more important than the Gutenberg Press, more significant than the creation of written language or oral language. Maybe not quite as significant as fire, but that's a different story. AI is changing life as we know it, not just business. I just had a conversation literally 30 minutes ago with a gentleman from Florida. We were discussing the direction and what it's going to do. And my impression is it's going to expand the pie. If it was a fixed pie, we'd all be out of work. But I am a believer that the pie is growing and expanding. And yes, they say 10% chance the human race will be eliminated. That's a pretty big number, actually, 10%, and that's kind of scary. But I'll tell you the 90%, I'm all in, and I'm helping people figure this stuff out. And that's I've been doing a lot of keynotes. I do continuing professional education for accountants and attorneys on this stuff. I apply the technology in the business space, in the career space, and in the higher ed space. Those are the three areas and avenues that I pursue to share and keynote and speak about this stuff, as well as guide folks in understanding it.
So this next question is one that every entrepreneur has dealt with. Tell us about a time where you failed. We often say failure is the first step to success. So think about a time where you failed in the past. What happened? What did you learn from it?
By the way, let me just address that. I'm an academic, so I can take the question and rearrange it. I believe there's no such thing as failure. I call them learning experiences. That doesn't mean I've succeeded at everything I've done, and I will answer your question. But I think the learning experience, I'm glad you framed the question to say a time that you failed and what did you learn? I'm saying a time that you did not succeed and what did you learn? And I'll tell you, I was selling cars. And the car business, it ethically is an interesting environment, as you might be familiar with. I'm sure people that have gone to buy cars, you can trust your CPA, but maybe not your car salesperson. It's a challenging arena. And I'll say I was exceeding in sales, but I would be not succeeding in the area of understanding and appreciating the true ethics that I wanted to commit. I was in the business a year to the day. And then I got out of the business. That doesn't mean I don't still buy cars and drive them into the ground, and I still like cars, and I still believe, and I'll buy and sell myself. But the idea of the car dealership, I did not succeed gloriously because I wanted to be the ethical car dealer, and that was a challenge to be.
That's fascinating. And we're definitely going to have you back on the show to dive deeper into each of these questions. But for now, one thing that I often say is, and I tell this to my employees and the people who work with me and for me all the time, is that when a tree falls in the forest, if nobody hears it, did that tree actually fall? This brings me to this next question. How do you make sure that all of these amazing projects that you're involved in get noticed? What marketing and advertising methods have worked best for you? You've got a minute. Let's go.
Actually, that tree falls in the forest. I always heard about, is there sound? Because if a tree falls, it still falls. But is there real sound that's generated? And yes, there's sound waves, but if no one there to listen to it, knows no sound effectively. So how do I get traction? How do I get exposure? I'll tell you, I wrote a book on LinkedIn probably 5 years ago, and over 30,000 connections, and actually 30,000 is the limit. I've got a whole bunch more followers on that. The communication, the social media platforms, the penetration, the exposure, you know as well as I do, what used to be 5 or 7 or 10 exposures before you get a customer is now 20 or 30 or 40 exposures to get a customer. So when you're looking at that level of need of exposure and contact, I developed a newsletter. I've got a newsletter with over 5,000 subscribers on LinkedIn. I also have constant interaction. So, hey, by the way, LinkedIn, come on down, let's connect. I'm open and wide open. But that's the avenue of communication, and it's repetitive. And personally, the WIFM, what's in it for me is the perspective of all marketing. I looked at that and said, you know what? There's a push strategy. I could say, I'm the greatest. I can sell anything. Wrong. I can say, what do you need? What do you want? How do I help you get what you want? Okay, the pull strategy is much more effective. The other side of that is being able to communicate. I used to say WIFM is not a radio station east of the Mississippi. Well, actually, there is a radio station, WIFM, in North Carolina now, so I can't say it's no longer a radio station. But what's in it for me? That's the perspective of all communications, social media, marketing, email communications, anything posted, any advertising that goes with that. What's in it for the person that's looking at that? As an academic, I actually reach out to my students. I engage them in the community. My goal is to get them involved, engaged, and exposed, and develop what I call success skills. I hate the term soft skills. I don't. It's not good to hate, but that's one of the terms that really doesn't fit well. And it is success skills that one needs to have. That's the direction that I help and try to foster with my students, with my colleagues, with my friends, and with my associates.
That was so awesome. We're definitely going to dive deeper into this on a later show. And as we approach our last question, before we ask people how people can get a hold of you, how people can reach you, learn more about the work that you're doing in your company, and we will include all that information in the show notes, what I wanted to ask you is, what is one piece of advice that you would offer to your younger self, to our audience, and to somebody, especially somebody who's just starting out in the same niche that you're in, but just doesn't know how to start or get going?
I don't really like to use old adages, but the Nike "just do it" is powerful. All right, so I was the high school introvert. I was not real aggressive, not real, I wasn't even real popular, nor did I need or want to be. I'm not worried about popularity contests. But you need those skills, those communication skills, those engagement skills, the activities. So just do it. Get involved. I'm telling my students all the time, I give extra credit for you to do stuff outside my classroom, not just inside my classroom. I'll point to your final grade. Yeah, they need to communicate. They need to do a 2-paragraph write-up. They need to present to their fellow students. And they need to attend an event and take an activity and then bring it back to the classroom. They'll get a 1 point added to the grade, and they can do the 5, add 5 points. As much as 10 points added to a final grade because they're engaging with the community and developing those skills. I'm a big fan. Had I known about Toastmasters, toastmasters.org in the day, I would have, that would have been a shining light and something that I really, really would have found incredibly valuable, and I find it valuable now, and I encourage it and recommend it. So the piece of advice is do it, engage, find opportunities, get out there. And there's a book called, Never Eat Alone. And that's the kind of thing you want to make sure to engage.
Amazing stuff. We're going to have to thank our guest today for being a guest on Business Story of the Week. And before we cut out on this episode, I wanted to ask you, how can people get a hold of you? How can people learn more about what you're doing? And how do people engage with you? And we will transcribe this and put it in the show notes for everybody to find.
Dr. Scott Dell or Dr. Scott CPA is the banner that I use on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best mechanism to get a hold of me, to reach out. I do have a Calendly link for setting up times to chat. Anybody that wants to talk about artificial intelligence, I want to find out what you're doing. I want to explore it. Writing another book in the process as we speak, and I want to find out what is best to use it, how to use it, and find out how people are engaging with it. Because as I say, not just business changing, but life changing. And we're trying to change life. I think we're all trying to make a difference. I know I am, and that's part of the reason I went into academia. I just got the doctorate in 2019. I'm a recently minted doctor. Lifelong learning is where it's at, and we're going to continue to grow that way, in that direction. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
All right, amazing. So you did it. Thank you for being a guest on the show today. Let me tell you what you can expect next. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all this, we're going to cut it into an episode. It will go on the Business Story of the Week page. So make sure you go on Apple Podcasts, review us, like us, go on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to us on Spotify, and this will come out in the next 30 days or so, depending on our workload and how many shows we have. We have had a lot of interest in the show lately, so we may be a little backed up, but the show will get out. In the meanwhile, we will send you clips that feel free to share on social. Also, the full episode, feel free to share any way that you like. The content is yours to share and put out there. We just ask that you mark us and tag us in the notes if you do. So in the copy, put hashtag Business Story of the Week, link back to us. We would appreciate that. And if you think that you might be interested in doing more podcasts, live ones and studio ones, Zoom ones, Riverside ones, there's a whole host of shows that likely if you did this one and succeeded, you would probably be really great at, and a great way of getting your message out. So your host will talk to you about potentially getting you booked on a strategy call for a Business Story of the Week's sister company, Podcast Cola, or becoming a YouTube influencer through Viral Mirage. Thanks again for being a part of this. Looking forward to working with you.